What's up everyone, OJ here. Welcome back to another video, and I want to first and foremost say happy holidays and Merry Christmas to all that are watching on Christmas Day, and of course happy holidays, whatever you celebrate, or even if you don't celebrate at all. I appreciate you and I thank you for being here with me, watching my videos, enjoying the streams, whatever the case is. So thank you guys so much for everything, and of course let's head into 2022 with renewed vigor and passion for gaming and all things in life. So thank you guys so much for your support. I honestly appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. But we do have some news to get into, so make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. And we're starting off here with the Famitsu sales. We have another impossible feat that Nintendo seems to do quite a bit now with the Nintendo Switch. So while it might be impossible, I guess that was before the Switch was a thing. And yes, once again, Nintendo Switch owns the top 30 in Japan of the Famitsu sales. Now, for those who don't know, the Famitsu sales, they're special because they actually track the raw physical sales numbers of hardware and also software, and it gives us the exact total. Now, we don't have digital sales, which is very unfortunate, but they're the only sales reporting charts in like the whole world that give consistent numbers pretty much every single week. So it's pretty cool to be able to get those numbers, compare and contrast, see what's doing well, and all of that. That's what's going down with Famitsu sales. But I wanted to talk about a number of things here because there were some big moving games heading into the last part of the year, where a lot of these companies are actually making quite a bit, and selling a lot of different games. And for Nintendo, this is usually the time of the year that the evergreens really come to play in Japan. So a lot of the games that people have been buying, throughout the year or even years, they come back up into the top 20, top 30 and all of that. And we're seeing that here. But the important thing, I guess, to kind of note here, or at least the impossible thing, is the fact that there was all 30 spots was all Nintendo Switch. And that's definitely going to send a little bit of a shockwave through the Japanese industry for sure. It has to, because this has happened, I think, 4 or 5 times this year in Japan, which was pretty much unheard of. Like every single year that I've been covering the Famitsu sales or the media create before that, this never happened. It was only until the Switch and only until recently that stuff like this happened. At least we would see a couple PS4 titles or Vita titles back then, or PS3 or whatever the case is, right? But now it's been happening quite a number of times where it would be all Switch titles, and it once again happened again. So shout outs to Gamatsu for the beat on this one here. So Famitsu published its estimated physical game software and hardware sales data for Japan for the week of December 13th, 2021 to December 19th, 2021. Now, Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl for the Nintendo Switch remained the top-selling game for the 5th consecutive week since it launched. That's very impressive as well, moving another 116,657 retail units. Now, no new titles did chart in the top 10 because there wasn't really a lot of new releases post-November. Now, on the hardware side, the Nintendo Switch family of systems sold a whopping 176,832 units, while the PlayStation 5 family of systems did better this time. It wasn't less than 2,000 units, which is good, and it sold 8,664 units, while the Xbox Series family of systems sold 2,889 units, and the PlayStation 4 family sold 61 units. So, I mean, there's still some PS4s going out there. So, of course, next generation systems continue to face some stock issues. Nintendo Switch OLED faces stock issues. Pretty much every system faces stock issues because of the chip shortage. That is just having a problem right now when it comes down to everything. You guys are seeing the top sales here with all the different games. I do want to point out just real quick, like I said, the evergreen titles, stuff like Super Smash Brothers. It's been 3 years, it's still there in the top sales charts. Animal Crossing, Mario Kart, Minecraft, Big Brain Academy, which came out not too long ago, but that's over 100,000 units. Mario Party Superstars putting up really good numbers. Pokemon Ring Fit Adventure, that's going towards 3 million units in Japan alone. Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury. There were some new titles in this, so we did get stuff like Record of Lodoss War. That was new. Also, there's also some other ones as well, which you guys are seeing. But the fact that it's all Nintendo Switch games, and even if you head down to the bottom, there are games like Splatoon 2, so another 5,700 units plus, almost going on 4 million units in Japan. Physical only alone, it's already over 4 million if you count digital, well over 4 million. But yeah, very crazy, very interesting, and like I said, unprecedented when it comes to it. Kind of impossible. If you would have told me that there would have been at least 3 to 4 times this year that the Nintendo Switch would actually dominate all 30 spots, I would say there's no way. I would say, well, there's some type of PS4 title or something kind of pops up and would be in like the top 30 pretty much every single time. There'd be no way that the Switch could dominate all 30 spots, you know, but it's happened, and it's happened a number of times. And even if you look at the sales, like with the Nintendo Switch, well over 170,000 units. They've been crossing 180, 190, 200,000 units. I mean, what that essentially assures here for the consumers when it comes down to it is, one, you're going to get a lot of money being reinvested back into the game development for the Switch. I think that the Switch development is so healthy at this point from a Japanese standpoint. I mean, you're getting a ton of developers that are all starting to move over to the Switch, especially the AA developers. And you're going to get a lot of stuff like Triangle Strategy, Bravely Default 2, Octopath Traveler. You're going to get a number of developers that are going to start doing games like that for the Nintendo Switch. I think that the Legend of Heroes series, I think that Falcom is definitely going to look very hard into actually moving their development completely over and starting with Switch, then porting to other systems. I think that this is definitely going to have a ripple effect, because I think at this point, more than a year in, like, if things haven't necessarily turned around at this point, I don't really think it's going to turn around even when there's more systems, because the PS4 didn't necessarily turn things around. It got those big games, it got those big, you know, Dragon Quest and stuff like that. But what I noticed with a lot of those games, that they would actually sell and then they just be off the charts, and they would just be Switch going back to everything, which before in the past you would get a lot of residual sales if it was like on 3DS or if it was like on different systems like that. But the fact that they kind of just sell so much at the beginning, then fall completely off when it's exclusive, at least with PlayStation, I think that a lot of developers are going to see that and either shift over to making their games sell way better in the US, like we've seen with Square Enix, for example, do those exclusive deals with Final Fantasy, do those exclusive deals and other games as well, stuff like Forspoken, for example, right? Do exclusive deals, get that pushed and get it really advertised in the West, so you can get those long-lasting or residual sales that you wouldn't necessarily get in Japan. But a lot of these developers are also going to make these AA type of games for the Nintendo Switch going forward, right? So stuff like Legend of Heroes and stuff like Ys, I think a lot of that is going to move over to the Switch first and foremost, because that's going to be the platform to where they can sell not only in the US and sell a lot, but also in Japan too. So we'll see how that goes going forward in the future. But man, Nintendo really is doing a crazy job here. And of course, we heard about the news with Nintendo reinvesting about $1 billion back into their own first-party development, and that tells me that, yeah, it's next generation time. They're definitely loading up, gearing up, getting ready, and expanding, because their games are going to get more complex, right? They're going to get bigger and better and all that stuff, and probably cost more to make too. So they're reinvesting back into that first-party development to make sure that that next-gen push is nice and strong. Make sure that that first-party push is there when they release their next-gen Switch. So it looks like all is good here in the world of Nintendo when it comes to the Famitsu sales. So what are your thoughts with this here, with Nintendo taking all 30 top spots and being the top selling system in Japan, pretty much owning the market 95% plus, pretty much all of December, just absolutely terrorizing any other company when it comes down to the sales here. Not actual literally, guys, you guys know that. But what are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the next topic here, guys. I had to talk about this because while the 3DS is definitely crusty at this point, a lot of people have moved on from 3DS games. This is a sale that I have to talk about because this is one of the greatest sales that I have seen on the Nintendo 3DS, or just game sales in general, because these are high quality games for extremely cheap. So if you're looking for some cheap presents, if you're looking for some cheap, really good 3DS RPGs to play, then this Atlus sale is absolutely for you. $10 or less on some of the best Nintendo 3DS RPGs out there. So let's go over this full lineup here, okay? So we have Etrian Odyssey 2 Untold, The Fair Knight for $7.99. Etrian Odyssey 4 Legends of the Titan for $7.99. Etrian Odyssey Nexus for $9.99. Etrian Odyssey Untold, The Millennium Girl for $7.99. Etrian Odyssey 5 Beyond the Myth for $8.99. Persona Q2 New Cinema Labyrinth for $9.99. Persona Q Shadow of the Labyrinth for $7.99. Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology for $9.99, and I'll go over my super picks here in just a bit. Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner Soul Hackers for $7.99. Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner 2 Record Breaker for $7.99. Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor Overclocked for $7.99. Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey Redux for $9.99, Shin Megami Tensei 4 for $7.99, and Shin Megami Tensei 4 Apocalypse for $8.99. All of these games are actively on sale till January 5th of next year. So very good stuff here. And my super picks here, because these are some great games. SMT4. I think that SMT4 is a phenomenal game on the Nintendo 3DS. Now, if you're coming from SMT5, SMT4 visually is definitely crusty, but the gameplay and the story are classic SMT and are really good. They're really, really good. So I highly suggest SMT4. I also highly suggest Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoners Soul Hackers. That is a phenomenal game as well. I think that some of the gameplay mix-ups and stuff that they do in that game is incredibly well done. So I really suggest that game too. Now the Etrian Odyssey games are fantastic, but I'm not as big of a fan as like scripting your own dungeon type of things. I'd rather just have it to where I just go and the dungeons just unlock. I don't like using the dual screen stuff for that, but the Etrian Odyssey games are actually really good and people do like those games. That franchise has went missing, so I'm waiting for them to bring that back on the Nintendo Switch some way, shape, or form. But I also highly, highly recommend Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology. I think that Radiant Historia is one of the games that they should definitely make a new entry into. Like if you wanted to pick a game out of all of these, because we know Persona Q, right? That's a Etrian Odyssey style of game. It's good, you know, Persona Q is awesome, but it's very much like Etrian Odyssey, but with Persona characters, and of course the themes and attacks and all of that. So that's awesome. But Radiant Historia, out of all of these, I feel deserves to kind of just get something more, right? Something more done, because it's such a perfectly crafted RPG. It has Chrono Trigger vibes to it. It has old school vibes to it. It has some new school splashed into there with the combat system. The use of time and the use of the story and the characters is beautifully done. So if we could get a new Radiant Historia, I mean, that would be absolutely incredible. But I think one thing that all of this shows here is that Atlus was far more comfortable with making 3DS games and making like SD games than they are making HD games, because the transition was a little bit rough and there was no way that they're going to be able to put this type of output on an HD system on the Nintendo Switch. Now maybe next generation they kind of catch up and they can get Etrian out, they can get all these spin-offs and stuff like that, but the amount of games they put out on the Nintendo 3DS was so incredible when it comes to it. It was incredible, the amount and also the quality. Look at all this stuff from Etrian Odyssey, Persona Q2, all these SMT games. All this stuff was on the Nintendo 3DS. We have legit like 2 SMT games on the Nintendo Switch in the years that it's been out, right? Now the 3DS has been out longer, but we only have 2. But even if you take a slice of like 4 years or 5 years that the 3DS was out, they still got way more games out. So it just goes to show you that, hey, you know, HD games are far more expensive. It's a lot harder. You're not going to be able to get out that type of game. So sometimes it was good for Atlus to stay in that generation. You know, I bet Atlus was thinking, man, the HD generation is a little bit tougher for us. We like the Vita and we like the 3DS a bit more. We can just keep on coming out with these games. But I think once again, yeah, they're catching up. Obviously, SMT5 is out. I think that game is doing phenomenal. But overall, guys, I think this 3DS sell is absolutely incredible. And once again, like Radiant Historia, Atlus, they need to bring that back. But yes, go buy SMT4, especially if you just like purchase SMT5, you're playing that, beat it. Go buy SMT4. It's phenomenal. Of course, having all of these on the Nintendo Switch would be good, but porting from the 3DS to Switch, it's not something that's easily done. So it is what it is there. But I would love to see, you know, I would say a renewed interest in Radiant Historia for like the Nintendo Switch. If they can get that going, like a new game in the franchise, that would be absolutely perfect. That would be the perfect chronology, right? If it's Radiant Historia on the Nintendo Switch. So we'll see what happens going forward in the future. But what are your thoughts on all the different 3DS sales here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, and moving on to the final topic here. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the full name of this game because this game's name is just way too long. But you guys, of course, can let me know in the chat. And if I really felt like spelling it out and pronouncing it, I would. But for right now, we're just going to call it Shika no Boken. All right, we're abbreviating it just so it's easier for me to say here. But this game looks really impressive. And Nippon Ichi Software has not confirmed it for a Western release. This game, to me, looks a bit more impressive from a visual flair standpoint and everything than Disgaea. So I'm interested in this game. So the basics of dungeon survival. This is the second trailer so far, but my man Stealth actually tweeted out this saying like, hey, where's this game at, Nippon Ichi Software? You guys bringing it over? What's going on? And that was the first time that I actually even saw the game. I was like, okay, what's this? Let me check it out. And then I started looking at it from the trailer. I'm like, wait a minute, this looks quality from what I'm seeing here. I like the more open-endedness of it and how you can kind of move around and stuff like that. So this looks like it's going to be a pretty solid strategy RPG for gamers out there. So Nippon Ichi Software has released the second official trailer for survival strategy RPG Shika no Boken. So the trailer, dubbed How to Traverse the Dungeon, introduces the basics of dungeon survival, including exploration, combat, and cooking. Shika no Boken is due out for the PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch on January 27, 2022 in Japan. You guys can check out more information. There'll be a link in the description below. And we're watching this trailer here, and I'm wondering exactly when they're going to talk about this. Now, what we do know, the last Disgaea game, Nintendo actually had a little bit of a deal. So the game actually came out in Japan on the PS4 and the Switch, and then it was announced here for the Switch as an exclusive. So I'm thinking maybe Nintendo and Nippon Ichi Software have some type of deal again to where it's going to be exclusive to the Switch here in the West, maybe a timed exclusive or something like that for some time, and it's going to be announced at a Nintendo Direct. So that's what I'm guessing is happening with this game, Shika no Boken. I think that it's going to be announced at a Nintendo Direct, or they're going to wait till they have the English done, because yeah, that name right there, that can just scare away so many people right then. This guy is a lot easier to pronounce, and I think that people can kind of understand that. But when you name a game like this, with how long it is, it's definitely going to need some tweaking for the Western audience. So that's my guess why they haven't talked about it too much here in the West yet, because Nintendo's working with them. I think that it's going to be maybe a 6-month to a year exclusive, something like that, to where there's some type of deal. And I think that they're going to maybe rename the game or literally interpret the game as well into something else, because I don't think you can launch the game, especially a new IP like this, with this type of name and it does well. It's just too hard to pronounce for people here. Not saying that people are dumb or anything like that when it comes down to pronouncing it or anything, or people won't buy it even if it does have this name. I just think that you need to do something to kind of abbreviate it, or kind of do something to make it, a little bit, better for the Western audience. We've seen Atlus do this before, even with Shin Megami Tensei Persona. They still call it Shin Megami Tensei 5 here to kind of separate the two, but now they just call it Persona in the West, where I think in Japan they still called it Shin Megami Tensei Persona, but in the West they just shortened it down to Persona, right? So I think that maybe something like that could be good. Maybe if they did do something like Shika no Boken, or just like that, or just Shika something, or Boken something. Maybe if they just shortened it just a bit, and they kind of course, translate it and don't make it seem as if you have to understand everything about, Japanese in order to play this type of game or something. I think that would probably be the best bet for this style of game. But everything that I've seen so far looks extremely clean, and I think that Nippon Ichi Software, they do a phenomenal job with their games. So I'm really interested in seeing kind of where they explore with this. I like the fact that they're adding in the dungeon survival type of stuff. I think that while this guy is fun, and I've always been, I would just say a somewhat fan of the franchise, I've never been a huge, oh my gosh, I gotta rush out and play Disgaea when it comes to strategy RPGs. Although I do like strategy RPGs, I've never seen it as more of the top of the line when it comes down to it. But this game definitely piques my interest a bit more than some of the most recent Disgaea games or the remakes that they've been doing, just because of the style of the game, the fact that you can kind of move around beforehand, you have the cooking aspect, you have some of that type of stuff that's in there. And I think that what they need to do is just kind of go back to the basics when it comes down to it. I think that they went a little bit too ham with the craziness with Disgaea, with some of the stuff, how you can do 9 million points of damage, and it was just kind of crazy. There was almost too much stuff in there when it comes to Disgaea and what they would do on the Switch sometimes. So I do like the games. I think that Disgaea is fantastic, but I feel that this one's kind of going back to the basics a little bit more and kind of adding in some fresh, good new elements to kind of mix things up in these strategy RPGs. So I think that's what you need to do to get more new fans into a game like this. So I'm interested in it. I think it's going to be a great game, and hopefully we get some information probably after the Japanese launch. Once there's a direct or something, we'll probably get some more information on this as they rename it, think about what it's going to be called, and actually put together a solid marketing plan so this can sell. Because right now at this point, if they release it how it is when it comes to the name and the marketing and everything, it's going to sell 0 copies. So they need to do some work on it first. So I think that's the reason why it's taken a little bit of time. But I don't think they're going to let this one slip through when it comes down to it, because this looks like a pretty solid game. games. So I think they're going to come out with something. And Nippon Ichi doesn't usually do Japanese exclusive type of stuff. They usually bring everything over, even if it is more on the niche end, which a lot of their games are. But we'll see what goes down with this one. So what are your thoughts on all the different topics that we discussed here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.